folks, Brian from TPC here. It's a rainy day on the range, but we decided to keep the videos going, so we're at the new home of TPC Studios. You'll see a lot of videos filmed here. Still work in progress, so instead of having a nice studio and green screen stuff, I got a bare wall with a target on it. But so we're offering you a video review of the CZ82. It's kind of a weird gun. It's a little bit outside of the norm for what you'd see people take to a class. But Century Arms sent these to us for use in a side event at the recent Red October Kalashnikov and had it for a minute. Figured I'd do a quick review on it and talk about it. So what is a CZ82? Well, you're probably familiar with a CZ75, which is kind of an iconic double action, single action steel 9mm. This is sort of like a hybrid of a CZ75 and a Makarov pistol. So this is an actual issued Czech pistol that was used by the military of Czechoslovakia at the time. It is made by CZ, which at the time was a state factory. It's chambered in 9x18mm Makarov. So, and like a CZ75, it is a double action, single action, double stack pistol. This is smaller than a CZ75. This replaced the earlier VZ52 pistol, which was a 7.62 Tokarev. When the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact went to the 9x18, the Czechs eventually needed a 9x18 pistol, so this is kind of what they came up with. CZ75 sort of internals trigger system. It is double action, single action, so, and like most CZ75s, the decocking sequence is hold the hammer, pull the trigger, it's now decocked. It is a double stack 12-round magazine. It's a pretty decent pistol as far as shootability goes. It's an inexpensive gun. You can find these somewhere between $280 and $350 depending on the condition. They're pretty reliable. We've got, I think I put about 600 rounds through this without any reliability troubles. And it's kind of a convenient size. It's a little bit smaller than a Glock 19, still very grippable. And 9x18mm Makarov is a pretty small caliber. It's about equivalent to .380 auto. That means in terms of capability, this gun kind of suffers the same thing .380 autos do, in that the ammunition doesn't offer you a lot of wounding capability. So you don't get penetration. You can get defensive ammunition from this from Hornady. They sell a critical defense load. Unfortunately, like a lot of .380 hollow points, you don't get the penetration out of that 9x18 critical defense that you need to guarantee penetration to vital organs at any sort of oblique angles. So if you decide this is a gun you're going to carry, you're going to want to be using ball ammo, just so that you can actually get penetration into the vital organs that you need. In terms of pros and cons, this gun was actually surprisingly shootable. My experience with 9x18mm pistols was the Makarov, which is probably best used to execute dissidents and not actually shoot for performance, but this is actually decent. You'll see, we'll roll in some footage. I shot our local Tuesday night steel with this. I shot some of our TPC 24 drills and tested for accuracy, and aside from the caliber, it's a pretty capable pistol. The trigger's actually surprisingly good. Obviously, it's an older, decently used gun. The double action's a little long and kind of heavy, but smooth. The single action, you can see the reset on it. The distance from trigger to the back of the gun is actually pretty short compared to even some of the modern CZs that you get today, because this is the equivalent of, if you're a CZ nut, kind of like I am, it has the pre-B disconnector in it, so it doesn't have a firing pin block, therefore you can have the shorter reset to the single action. It has a little bit unique for the time, especially for a communist pistol, ambidextrous controls. So it has an ambidextrous magazine release and an ambidextrous thumb safety that's actually pretty robust. I wouldn't feel too bad carrying this gun on single action with this thumb safety. Obviously, of course, it was meant to be carried double action, single action with the hammer down. It's got a good firing pin block, so you're not going to hit the back of the hammer and light a round off. So working into some of the things I don't really care for about the gun, I mentioned the caliber. That is really the biggest limiting factor on this gun, is 9x18mm Makarov. It's not a very powerful caliber. It's like .380 auto, suffers the .380 auto problems. And the other thing I don't really like about the gun stems from it having to be in 9x18 Makarov. So if we look at how the gun's made, it's unique. Dissembles kind of like a Makarov. You pull the trigger guard down, pull the slide off, and you notice the barrel's actually fixed into the frame. Now that does a couple cool things in that this is actually a very accurate pistol, surprisingly so, and we'll cut to some 25-yard groups I shot. But the bad part of it is that fixed barrel means it is a straight blowback. So fixed barrel, and there's no locking systems in these slides. So despite the fact that you're basically shooting a 380, the slide unlocks very fast. It doesn't even unlock. The slide travels to the back of the gun very fast. And when it hits, it's got a lot of velocity, so it moves quite a bit. It feels very violent to shoot, more so than you'd expect a steel 9x18 or 380 pistol. So that's the biggest limitation. The other thing is, obviously, it's a surplus pistol from the Warsaw Pact. And, well, that means it's kind of a little bit esoteric. You're not going to be able to find quality carry holsters very easily. It's something you have to have someone probably make. You can get decent range holsters that are leather, like the original issued ones. They're not bad, they're not great, but they'll work for range use. So that kind of leads me to the next part of the review, which is who is this gun for? Why should you buy this? Well, if you're looking for a performance pistol, this isn't it. I mean, it's pretty good for the Warsaw Pact. So if you're looking for a communist pistol that's not a CZ75, but still pretty good to shoot, this is pretty much it. It's a lot better than Makarov. It's not nearly as good as a legit CZ75, but it can get the job done. I was able to finish pretty well at our Tuesday night steel shooting this. However, 9x18mm Makarov is also too small to legally compete in most, if not all, defensive-oriented sports or practical shooting sports. Can't shoot in USPSA, can't shoot it in a regular IDPA. I'm not even sure if you can shoot it in an IDPA bug gun. But you know, you have a local outlaw match that'll let you shoot it. It's fun to shoot, and it's a good sort of, if you needed something to go with an AK for a comm block sort of loadout to shoot a match with, and you wanted to, you know, be cool, you could probably shoot at your local 2-gun outlaw match if that's an option for you. Then the other thing is, if you don't have a whole lot of cash, this is not the worst option for self-defense that you could have. It's better than a 22. With ball ammo or full metal jacket, it can really put the hurt on someone as much as any other full metal jacket ammunition would. You're not going to get expansion, but you'll at least get penetration into the vital organs you need for a defensive gun. And if this is your only option, you aren't too far behind. I mean, it's surprisingly easy to shoot. The sights are pretty good. The trigger's okay. It's a little bit unpleasant to shoot because of that blowback operating system, and there's some sharp edges because it's a 1980s military pistol from a Warsaw Pact country. They weren't sort of really worried about people shooting it a whole lot. And so, you know, there's some sharp edges that'll hurt your hand a little bit when you shoot. I didn't bleed, but, you know, you kind of felt it. So if you're looking for a 9x18 pistol that's more of a issued type of Warsaw Pact gun, this is probably your best option. Obviously a CZ75, far better gun. CZ82, not a bad option.